Lua is a scripting language that is designed to be included in other software, making it a perfect fit for Medialon. It's also extremely fast, commonly being compared to C++ for speed and efficiency. A bit of background. Lua executes in something that's called a Lua state. This Lua state is persistent and self-contained, meaning if you define a variable within the state, that variable exists until the state is closed. Also, a Lua state can only execute one piece of code at a time, so you don't need to worry about parallel operations. In essence, a Lua state is a little box that can execute code. When an SMI Lua MxM is added to Medialon, it has its own Lua state. When your project starts, the state is created and is completely empty. When your project stops, the state is destroyed. This means that your Lua MxM will never remember any old settings or information from previous executions and will run very consistently. Each SMI Lua MxM device that you create will have its own Lua state. Because they're different Lua states, they're completely independent from each other. This allows parallel Lua executions to run, giving the flexibility of different parts of your system to run when they should and not be waiting for other items to finish. As mentioned before, each time a manager project is run, a new Lua state is created. This state is completely fresh and can begin executing code immediately. However, its usefulness is somewhat limited. The SMI Lua MxM commands don't allow for multi-line parameters, so writing Lua code inside of the parameter is cumbersome and difficult. This is where a Lua definition file comes into play. The basic idea is that you create any complex interactions you need in a separate text file. That text file is then executed within the Lua state, allowing anything from a simple loop all the way up to multi-megabyte files. Remember though, that any variables that are created within that file are remembered in the Lua state, but this is something that we can use to our advantage. Lua has something called functions. A function is a specific piece of code that is defined with a name, just like a task. These functions are defined in the Lua state, normally by a Lua definition file. If the definition file has a function inside of it, that function is loaded into the Lua state and waits for other commands to call or execute it. It will wait there until the Lua state is destroyed or you redefine the function. This brings up the great possibility of having multiple functions defined in the Lua definition file and then the file loaded once into the Lua state. Then an execute script command can be called and run that function. Because it's already loaded into the Lua state, the function will execute extremely quickly and can be called as many times as desired. Functions themselves have two other very important traits, the first one being parameters. Just like a Medialon device command, you can pass parameters into Lua functions. This lets you create a function that is more generic and more powerful. The second trait is return values. When a function executes, it can return values back to Medialon directly. This can be useful when your function does some math or string operations and you want the results to be placed into a Medialon variable. To quickly recap, the SMI Lua MxM creates individual Lua states for every Lua device that exists. These states are created when your project runs and destroyed when the project stops. You can create a Lua definition file that is Lua code, including functions, and then load it into your Lua state using execute file. Once the functions exist in the Lua state, you can execute them with the execute script command with parameters and return a result. The next video will demonstrate the interactions between Lua and Medialon and allow your code to integrate deeply into the Medialon environment. For more information, please see the SMI reference manual or check out our website at smart-monkeys.com.